Welcome to the Straight Red Card. Brett and I are back. We'll start with Freddy adieu to Philly. Apparently, he played a game, but if you watch the highlights on the MLS website, he's hardly in the game, and I guess he came out in what, 65th minute, as you think you said?
Around that 68th, 70th, whatever. You know, he's getting reintroduced back to the league. It's his first game back and first game starting. You know, just my guess is he's working up his match fitness compared to everybody else in the team that's been playing for half a year now straight.
Yeah, but didn't he just train with the U.S. national team quite a bit?
Yeah,
shouldn't he be pretty
training's
fit?
one thing and playing's another thing. I know he just got off his season in the second division of Turkey and everything, but you know, it's just going to take time for him to readapt to his new team. You know, 68 minutes is a promising thing for Philly and for Adu. I mean, it's a good signing. My big question is, how is Noack going to play him? I mean, is he going to play him like he did in the Olympics, more of a roaming shadow striker / center midfielder? Basically, your responsibility is to create opportunities. You know,
yeah.
It just depends on what type of team they're going to throw out, and it could be a good signing, or it could just be an extra player with no defensive responsibility.
Well,
if you utilize most out of him, he shouldn't have any defensive responsibility.
I think, you know, one of the things that comes out when you talk about Freddy coming back to MLS now, it just seemed like he was finally getting his feet in Europe, and that maybe this was the time to actually stay, because it seemed like he had finally got some footing and was doing the right things, which is why he got called up by Bob. And just when those things seem to be coming around and he seems to be doing better, that's when he comes back. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. He was playing with his team in the second division of Turkey. Nothing against Turkey. Not saying that any better or any worse. I'm just saying that being back in MLS puts you closer to Klinsmann. You know, he's going to get consistent playing time. He'll be able to show his ability, and hopefully at that point, in a couple years, maybe he'll bound back to Europe after he's a little more mature mentally, or whatever the case was.
Maybe.
And who knows? Maybe he just wasn't. He was tired of bouncing around. Maybe he just wants a couple years of stability.
Well, you just look at the United States national teams over the last 4 World Cups, and the number of MLS players on those teams. It hasn't always gone down every World Cup, but last World Cup, it was sort of at an all-time low number of domestic U.S. players playing in MLS. Unless we're expecting Jurgen Klinsmann to kind of change that whole philosophy, I don't know if Freddy helps himself or hurts himself by coming back to the MLS, although Klinsmann showed he has some propensity and certainly some favorites in MLS, like Kyle Beckerman. Yeah,
I mean, you look at Kyle Beckerman. I mean, he stepped up and he played well with a center midfield pairing or trio of two players that are currently in Europe, and you know, he was the better option of the three. I think Klinsmann is really going to just take a look at what his options are, how they're playing at the club level, regardless of league. I mean, obviously, if somebody's playing better in England, like in the Premiership, compared to, say, somebody playing in MLS, obviously, I would imagine somebody like Dempsey would get a nod over somebody like Rogers.
Yeah.
If they're both on form.
God, I would hope so.
Yeah, one would think so too. Yeah, it's, you know, I think this move for Freddy is going to be a good one. He'll find some consistency. I mean, he's still young. He still has opportunities ahead of him.
It's still young. I mean, it's just once you come back from Europe, you typically, unless you're Brian McBride, you don't go back to it once you come back to MLS. It happens occasionally. It's rare, though. I mean, once you go to Europe and things don't work out and you come back home, you're pretty much staying home. On the same lines, though, speaking of the midfielders for the United States national team, Michael Bradley has basically been told by his manager at Gladbach that he has no future with the club, and that he better go find another one because he's not going to get a minute of playing time all season at Gladbach. Which just, you know, they obviously were ready to sell him last season to Aston Villa. They had a loan to buy setup there, and Aston Villa, of course, said no thank you. And so Michael comes back, and Gladbach says, no thank you, no thank you. Get out of here. We don't want you. Please leave. And if you stay, you're not playing a minute. And what's going on behind the scenes there? Has Michael Bradley pissed some people off at Gladbach?
Well, it was an untimely move on his part.
But Michael says actually that the club instigated getting him out of Gladbach and off to Aston Villa. He clarified. He said that was their doing. That wasn't his. The
manager at the time basically stated that they're moving in a different direction that doesn't include him. So he opted to push for a loan at a time of need where they were on bound for relegation.
I mean, what else does that say when your club manager tells you you're not in our future? Get the fuck out of here, and go find somewhere else to play.
Well, the big thing is that some people think that, and even possibly the current manager even thinks that maybe he should have stuck around because the manager was on the likes to be fired anyhow. Bradley was performing pretty well for them before the move to Aston Villa. Now, I mean, his options are pretty simple. I mean, he's got to find a new team. If he stays with Gladbach, basically what's going to happen is they're not going to play him, because why would they play him? He's going to be out. He's going to be gone by next summer at the very latest.
And then his agent's running around saying, "Well, Roma's interested, Napoli is interested." Of course, Roma has that American influence there. And then in the same breath, he's also saying they're interested, but they don't have much money.
That's the big thing, yeah. If Gladbach really wants him gone, they'll have to probably lower the price, because the $5 million that they were asking for might not be reasonable for somebody who hasn't really played in half a year to a year.
Yep.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. There have been two options. He could have played in Russia, and he could have played in Turkey, neither of which Bradley was really interested in doing. I would imagine if those were his two options, that he would probably prefer to just sit and train by himself at Gladbach. But I think what's going to happen is it's going to wait down to the wire. They're going to get an option, maybe from Italy, who knows, and he'll take it. He'll go over, maybe resurrect his career. I imagine he would. He's a student of the game. He's a hard worker. He'll find his way back to a team.
He's also supposedly kind of an asshole too. But I mean, that's just what I hear through the grapevine.
He's got that aggressive personality. We saw it with a couple.
That's a nice way to put it.
We saw it with Wijnaldum. As far as Bradley's concerned, there's been talks of players that used to play with him back when he was in Chicago, saying that he would always be a little harder on his players. Like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Whatever. Whether or not it was deemed, whether or not it's accurate, who knows?
Yep.
The actual thing is that he's got to find a club.
Yeah. Well,
should he be called up for the Belgian friendly? And I don't think he should be. Not because he's not talented enough, but simply because we need him to solidify his club situation.
Yeah, and we should have some standards. If no one wants you, and your own club saying get the hell out of Dodge, the standard is usually you have to be playing for your club and playing well. And Bradley, in the last couple games we saw him, especially the very last one, he had some issues, he had some problems, and that could just be because you're just not playing.
It's exactly the reason I think it is. You're starting to see his form dip because he's not playing at all. I mean, it's there, but it's not there. And we've seen it happen with other players.
Yeah.
Once they stop seeing playing time, their form dips. We saw it with Pierce. We saw it with Adu. I mean, it's just how it is. You got to stay sharp. You got to stay on your ball.
What really gets me about this, whether it be Bradley's former manager or his new manager, for them to both say, "You're not in our plans. We're going a new direction." My thought is that's a bunch of poo. First thing, Michael Bradley can play a lot of different positions. He could play center midfield, defensive center midfield. He could even play center attacking midfield. I mean, he used to do that in Holland, and he did quite well at Heerenveen playing that position. I mean, are we just saying that Michael Bradley cannot play any of those positions anymore, and how could you possibly discount a player or get rid of a player who can play that many different positions? Because it's not about Michael Bradley's play. That's what I'm trying. That's my point here. It's not about Michael Bradley's play. There's something else going on there, attitudinally or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not inside of, I'm not in his back pocket. I'm not a fly on the wall, so I don't know what's going on. But something beyond the fact that it's not about his play. It's not about that he can't play multiple positions for Gladbach. It's not that they're taking a new direction. They just simply don't want him around. There must be something more to this.
Well, from what's been reported is Gladbach has the new manager expected that Bradley was going to be gone over the summer. They expected him to be gone, so they planned without him. Now the opportunity arises where he might be back, and quite frankly, he's from what I understand, he's denied signing an extension to his contract. So, I mean, in their take, why would you play somebody who's ultimately going to be gone come January or come next summer when you can play somebody who's ultimately going to stay with you and be with you and for the next upcoming years? Why would you play him in the reserves team when you have other players that are on contract that want to play, that want to stay? I mean, why would you give him the time? Why would you give him the minutes? That's the standpoint at this point right now.
Well, look at it this way as well, though, Brett. When Bradley left, Gladbach was in the cellar of the Bundesliga. It looked really a whole lot like, they were going to be relegated. And maybe they just saw that as, and then, of course, all the talk was Bradley wants to play for a bigger club, so they know he wants to leave. And maybe they're just kind of pissed off about that. Hey, you left us when we were down and out, and yet we survived without you, and now we don't want you back. So go kiss off.
That's very possible, and that's actually, I think that's one of the standpoints by one of the actual club itself, not necessarily the manager, because the manager doesn't know him. Didn't prior to meeting with him during the summer, he didn't know him from any other player.
Right.
He planned without him, and quite frankly, if he does stay, he'll either have to sign an extension to give Gladbach a little more bargaining power before they give him minutes, or he'll just be training by himself.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to his dad, Bob, who is up for the Egypt job. And it hasn't been, there's no official reports now. Of course, when this airs, there might be. But I think I said before to you that if Bob gets this job, I'll stand on my head and spin and do, some sort of contortionist movement. All things I can't do, by the way, Brett, but things I would do if, in fact, Bob Bradley became manager of Egypt. I just don't see that happening. Americans aren't, they're not, as far as soccer goes. I mean, Egypt, they're not really excited about having Bob Bradley. I mean, the general public. I mean, I don't think they look at Bob Bradley, or any American for that matter, and go, oh, yeah, that's a guy we want coaching our national team. So I don't care what the federation in Egypt thinks. I think if he's hired, it would not go over very well with the fans. And if he did get hired, which I don't think he will, he would have to win and continue to win, because if he didn't win at any point, I mean, his head would be on the chopping block, metaphorically, really quick.
I'm on the fence on both sides of this. It would be really cool to see him get the job and hopefully do well. Because I would like to get that whole stigma of Americans don't understand soccer, don't understand this. And it's watching a U.S. Manager go abroad and excel would do wonders for us. However, given the political unrest, given their just general sense of of Americans in general, and this isn't a lot of the world's sense, but it just doesn't seem like it'd be a smart move.
No, I mean, I don't know how bad or not smart of a move it would be for Bob. I mean, maybe Bob wants to take that risk, and that's fine with me. I just don't see it happening, and I think the pressures would be immense, and I don't think he would be welcomed with open arms. I may be wrong there.